Wonderful, wonderful viewers. Thank you for joining us today. I have the brilliant author of Wahala, Miss Nikki May here. We're so honored she made out time to join us today. She has stuff going on, but she's giving us 30 minutes of her time. So Miss Nikki, so great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, and
Yes.
thank you for reading Wahala.
Yay! I loved it. It was such a bonding opportunity for my sister and I. Each time she calls me, she'd be like, this book is serious Wahala.
There's certainly lots of trouble going on.
Yes, yes. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions from my viewers, general questions about writing and questions about the book, at least also specifically, if that's okay. Tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you decide to start writing, and how did you get to the point of writing and publishing Wahala?
Well, I worked in advertising all my life. So I wrote copy for clients, so whether it's technical copy for British Telecom or cookbooks for Weight Watchers. So I've always written and I've always loved books. I've read a book a week since I was, 12 years old. And I've always wanted to write that book. But everybody thinks they can write a book, and you put it off and you put it off, and you get older and you get older. And then suddenly one day I went for lunch with some of my Niger girls in a restaurant in London, a Nigerian restaurant, and I physically felt the code switch. I got in there, my voice got louder, my accent became more Niger. I felt the whole thing. And then as I got on the train to come home, I almost felt it again going the other way, where my voice became quieter and more modulated. And I thought, this is an interesting thing to play with my mixed raceness. That's having two homes, sometimes fitting in both, sometimes not. And because I'm a Nigerian girl at heart, I like a bit of drama in my drama. So obviously it had to have a lot going on. And I put pen to paper, and it literally poured out of me. In 6 months, I had a very, very crap version of the book that is now Wahala.
6 months. That's incredible. You mentioned something very interesting. You've been reading your whole life.
Yeah.
And I think you almost cannot write unless if you're very fond of reading.
Uche, I think that is totally true. I think the biggest thing to become a better writer is to read. And although I didn't know I was learning all that time, you're learning so much about plot, about what holds you, about what makes you keep turning the pages, about character development. So I think reading is the best writing course you can do. And all that time I thought I was wasting my time reading. There are times when I was young, people say, come out, Nikki, come out. It's like, no, I've got this really good book. I don't regret a minute of it now.
You were laying the foundation, as it
exactly
were. Wow.
Exactly.
And then some people read for most of their life, and they keep nursing this hope that they might write someday. They might be a published author, fiction or whatever. And then somehow life happens. We all get in other careers. We got to put food on the table. We got to pay the bills. And then one question that came up on my page was, so do you think the 40s is too old to break into writing?
I'm 57 years old, and this is my debut book, my first ever published work. So definitely not. I also think people say, don't you wish you did this a lot earlier? And I suppose part of me did, but I don't think I could have. You're ready when you're ready. And it's only when you're ready, when you've been through a certain part of your life, when you've got enough experiences, and when you're comfortable enough to be able to devote the time to it. Because as you say, life gets in the way. You've got a day job, you've got kids, you've got, so fit 40, spring chicken.
I know, right? I love that, because I think our world is so focused on the most achieving people under 30, under 40, and we don't give a lot of room for people who develop at a different pace, So what if it's not under 40? What if it's 60 for you? You made it.
I think it's brilliant. It's also at a time when I thought I would be, I don't know what I thought I'd be doing, but it's wonderful to think that at 57, I've got this whole new career in front of me, and something that I've always wanted to do. So it's just a joy.
That's amazing. So I got to ask you one question. How did you make out the time? How did you get this huge project done in 6 months? Or at least the first draft, as you said?
Again, it helps that you're older, because when you're older, you got more flexibility in your career. So you don't have a boss. Well, some we do, but I had more flexibility. I worked for myself, so I could say, every morning I'm going to do 2 hours and clients can wait. And when the older you are, you're less likely to have kids at home. I don't have kids, but that wasn't a problem. But I do think you have to, if you want to write, and I was still running my business when I wrote Wahala, you have to carve out that time. You have to make it important. You have to make it a priority. And if that means 1 hour of not watching telly, if that means you tell your family, just 6 to 7, leave me alone. If it means you get up a bit earlier, I think, and also you have to kind of write all the time. If you don't write, if you skip a whole week, you come back and it's like it takes you another 3 days to get back in. So even if it's only half an hour a day, try and be consistent.
That's amazing. The carve out time. I talk to people a lot about writing biographies, and people say, okay, you're a full-time physician, you got kids. How do you do all this? I'm like, you carve out time. For me, a lot of the things I do might even be 15 minutes a day that I have.
Exactly.
But make the best of it and fragment it. And in 6 months you have something.
And find clever ways to do things. Like I have 2 dogs, so every day, regardless, I have to walk my dogs.
I see them.
Out walking my dogs. Walking my dogs is thinking time. I am sending myself voice notes. I stop and I send myself voice notes of ideas. I run through the plot in my head. I record a little message, send it back. I get home. Sometime that day, I find 10 minutes to transcribe these garbled messages. And if you're a commuter, find some time on the train. And if you don't have any time, well, give up that 1 hour of television and devote it to your creativity.
Exactly. Thanks for sharing that. So useful. I'm going to go in and ask you a little bit about the book itself, the character development. Okay. I'm going to have to tell you, Boo is not popular.
I get that.
Somebody said, why is she so grumpy? Why is she never happy? So what was the inspiration behind creating that character?
Well, all my characters are flawed. I personally think flawed characters are much more interesting than perfect characters. So I wanted a set of flawed characters, and poor Boo has come in for a lot of stick. And I can understand that because she's got this amazing house. She's got wooden floors. She's got a great kitchen. She's got this adorable French husband who loves her, who's a great father, great with her kid. He does the cooking, he does the washing, he'll do whatever she asks. She's got this kid who's bright and sparky. She's bright. She's got a great job. You think, what the hell has Boo got to be so grumpy about, right? But the truth is, Boo was brought up as the only brown person in a white village, in a white family, in a white country. She has, her mother is white, her stepfather is white, her siblings are white, and the father that she never met abandoned her mother before she was born. She's never met him, but he's informed all her opinions about Nigeria, about Nigerian men, about Black men, all of it. And then also, I'm sure it's the same in the States, but over here, when you hear about Nigeria or Africa, because most people think Africa is a country after all, when you hear about it on the news, it's negative. It's 419, it's Boko Haram, it's corruption, it's starvation, it's burglary, it's carjacking. The only good news is once in a while there's a footballer who's scored a goal or there's a runner who's won a medal. So all her opinions are negative. Her best friend Ronke, and Ronke and Simmi were the first brown people she ever met. Ronke has bad taste in men. So Ronke has dated some dodgy Nigerian blokes. There was the one who cheated on her. There was the one who borrowed her money. So she is prejudiced. She is very prejudiced, and that's a bad thing. But you can see where this prejudice has come from. She's also very disconnected from herself. She's never felt like she belongs. So I think I'm not excusing her. I'm just explaining where her prejudice and grumpiness. I just found it interesting to explore this flawed character and to put her on the page.
But that is true. We all are a product of our upbringing. And in this case, it was a lot of childhood trauma, actually, that manifested. She never quite could settle as an adult. Yeah, I loved Ronke, though. I loved her. I loved, like you said, just so unfortunate her experiences with relationships. But I thought she was a very warm, loving, homely, Not to say that not being homely is not good, but I was drawn to her. I liked her very much. Can you
I think
comment
she's also very comfortable in her skin, which I
Right.
think is what's lovely about Ronke. I think you could put her anywhere, take her to Nigeria, she'd be happy. You know, she was the sort of person who carried her happiness inside her, which I
Right.
think is what we should all strive to do. So I
Right.
think the thing with Ronke is, and that's why I actually felt evil when I was writing the book, because I did do some horrible things to Ronke, and
I
she didn't
know.
deserve any of
I
them.
know.
But because she is such a sensible, grounded, wonderful person, I actually think in her heart she's still happy now.
And she was likely the one best at doing the code switching. You know,
Oh,
she would
definitely.
meet Simmi's parents and she became this Niger girl and
Yeah.
she's out there in the world and she's a Brit girl. So tell me
Yeah.
a little bit, that's our world, right? I am California born to Nigerian parents. I grew up in Zimbabwe. I'm a third culture kid. You're a culture
Gosh.
kid. Tell me a little bit about code switching. Can you comment? It's our reality, isn't it?
It's my reality. Some people think it's a bad thing. I just think it's normal. You know, today I took my sister and I went out for lunch. We're going out for dinner, and I live in Dorset, which is very white, very middle class, and I feel very much at home. On the 20th of June, I'm going to Nigeria to see my dad, and I'll be in the village, and I'll be like Ronke. I'll be dipping and saying, hello, auntie, hello, uncle, and I'll be doing my ekaso and my ekrole.
Yeah.
And to me, it will come naturally. So although it is definitely a code switch, it is not, I don't feel like I'm acting in either situation. It is just, I am two different sorts of people, two different cultures live happily in me. And for you, you've got three.
I know. I happen to think it's very enriching. I don't know how to be otherwise, you know.
I
Yeah.
totally agree. I also think at the best of it, two homes is twice the joy. And I think totally you're right, it's enriching. I also think it makes us stronger people, or it can make us stronger people. I think we're able to deal with anything, anywhere. I do think that when you've moved around and when you have lots of different homes, it doesn't matter where someone puts you, you will just get on with it. You have no choice, you're used to it.
Right, exactly. So I'm going to ask you about Simmi, because I think her character brings out an aspect of our world, which is expectations versus what people want to do. You know, so the world expected she's married to this fabulous guy and she wants to buckle down and have children, but that's not really what she wants to do. Now, there's a little bit of I guess some dishonesty in the sense she didn't really share that with the husband. However, I think our world is not forgiving of people who want to be different from what's expected.
Uche, I think that is totally right. You know, I think everywhere the people expect a lot of things of women. There's expectations on our hair, our bodies, our careers, our relationship status, even our reproductive organs. And I think when you refract that through a biracial or through a Nigerian or African lens, the pressure is even harsher. I think certainly in Nigeria, if you don't want kids, you're either barren, you're mad, or both. There's not a possibility that you might just decide you don't want kids. It is not possible. And I think Simmi feels that really, she wears that expectation really heavily. I think also she dropped out of medical school. And you know what our parents are like, you know, you're probably the blessed perfect child. You're a doctor, so you're okay. You're
Shocking.
But, you know, it's like you're not a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant. Then you're not. And 1 degree is not enough. They want the masters, they want the PhD. So I think she feels that sense of failure really strongly, which is why she can't be honest. She feels ashamed. So although she knows she doesn't want kids, she feels ashamed of this choice, and that's why she can't share it. And again, it's this exploring flawed characters. I also think a lot of books about Black people, they don't focus on the characters. It's sort of, I find that we don't have many flawed Black women in literature. And I feel it's time that the books don't have to be about trauma. They don't have to be about slavery. They don't have to be about being a house girl. We can talk about just general women living their best life, making mistakes, having an entertaining, that kind of, just like a normal book. Imagine they're like white people, except they're not.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I think we're either severely traumatized or ridiculously perfect. Like nobody like
Exactly.
that. What about the middle? Somebody living their life
Exactly.
like me, making good old mistakes. We need to do more
Exactly.
of that. I totally hear you. Isabel, oh my
Oh.
gosh. Before I ask you about Isabel, somebody raised a question. I thought it was very valid. She said, her situation and how she discovered the girls actually raises the issue of social media. How we have to be careful with social media. You're traveling, you're posting that you're on your way, or you're
Yep.
checking into a place and you're taking pictures with people and you're not thinking of the ramifications. Now, that was extreme. They were all adults sitting down, obviously, at an event. But can you comment on that?
Well, I think it's totally true. Having just written a book, I can tell you it's true. I have got people I haven't met since I was 5 years old going, Nikki, is it you? Are you the same Nick Ariagulla that was at Queen's College? I'm like, shit, suddenly you're very exposed, even though I've changed my name.
Right.
So I do think that social media does, and I don't want to connect with my ex-boyfriends. They're exes because for a reason.
For a reason,
but suddenly,
right?
You're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, suddenly people from your past feel totally entitled to raise their hand and get in your world. So I think I found that quite, it was very easy for Isabel to have found Simmi and then seen the friends. I mean, obviously it's fiction and it's an entertaining story, so you're allowed to bend things
a little bit.
Yeah, but I'm quite one of the. I think it's really. I'm glad I'm not a young person in the world of social media because it's bad enough being a teenager without having all of this, constant barrage into your life.
Yeah, I'm in my early 40s and I think back to what I posted in my 20s and I wouldn't now.
I'd be cancelled.
I know. We're growing up and can you imagine the 12-year-olds, what they can put out there?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing is she barged in to their lives and became a sort of coach to everybody.
Yes.
So comment on what this tells us about being discerning. You got to be discerning in sharing your problems, right?
You absolutely have to be. And I think one of the reasons Isabel was able to do this is because she came in with Simmi's blessing. So she's coming in as I was best friends with Simmi when Simmi was 5. Simmi and I are like this. So she kind of had the recommendation of. So if I say, if I said to you, this is my sister, you sort of imbibe her with what you know about me. So if Nikki's okay, then of course her sister's going to be okay. So that gave her an in. Obviously, she's pretty much a psychopath or a sociopath. So she also knows exactly what to say to each person to get under their skin and to undermine them. And she presented a different part of her. So when she was with Simmi, she was one person. When she was with Boo, she was another. When she was with Ronke, she was pared down, less makeup, less glamorous. And so she was very clever at working out what each person needed and giving it to them. So Boo wanted to feel special. She wanted to feel admired. She wanted to feel worthy. There you go. Simmi wanted to feel independent and successful. Cool, I'll get you a job. So it was kind of finding out what she could do. And it's certainly in Nigeria, we do have a very small group of people with unlimited wealth and unlimited privilege and that they can get away with anything. So I was also tapping into that vein.
The ultimate mental manipulator.
Yes.
Like she found a way. And the Kayode story was sad. At the same time, it doesn't justify what happened to him, although again, this is all fiction. But at the same time, he was never quite upfront with Ronke. He was never honest. My sister reminded me there was a place he said, after she cooked or something, he said, now I can introduce you to my mother. And my sister was so disgusted by that comment. Like, okay, so she didn't cook, she wouldn't introduce to your mother.
Exactly. And but again, Kayode is flawed. I mean, personally, I quite like Kayode and I feel very sorry for him because I think Kayode genuinely did love Ronke. But the truth is, I do think there's, and I'm generalizing, but Nigerian men tend to be very spoiled. Their mothers spoil them, which turns them into these men that feel like little chiefs and little gods who can expect women to be in their place. And I think Kaide is one of those privileged boy, spoilt by his mother, spoilt by his family, slightly entitled, but I don't think he was a bad person. And I think a lot of his commitment issues came from his encounter with Isabel when he was in South Africa. So anyway, he definitely suffered enough.
What a character. The other character I felt very sad for, and why am I blanking out on his name? That would be Simmi's husband.
Martin.
Martin, yes. I thought he was, initially, I thought he might be actually having an affair. I was thinking that's what you were going to tell us. He was always gone in this place, taking phone calls, and I wondered about that, but you didn't go there.
No,
being this sweet guy who was
the men were kind of bit parts. They were just background texture. I wanted my women to be on the page, front and central, and the men were just like, okay, they ought to have a husband. They were kind of just background characters in my head.
Sure. And you had to somehow weave this intricate plot of Wahala. So for my non-Nigerian, non-West African viewers, Wahala means trouble. So how did you think of all these? How did you plot the whole thing?
It was difficult. And in my first draft, I knew where I was starting and I knew where I wanted to go. But I loved my girls so much that I didn't actually do all the things I was supposed to do. So they had a lot more lunches, they drank a lot more wine, they wore a lot more clothes. But I shied away from actually giving them this Wahala. And it was afterwards when I read it back after it pulled out of me, and I realized that I had some great characters, but the story was just, nothing was happening. So I had to unpick it all, and it was almost a question of what's the worst thing you can do to each of them. Do it. And it was then do the worst thing. And writing a book is hard, it goes on, and it's kind of, there's so many threads you're trying to keep together. And you also want to lay the groundwork so that the reader doesn't think they've been conned. So you sort of want to make sure that if you go back, you think, actually, okay, that's why that happened, and that's why that happened. So it took quite a few edits and quite a few, but yeah.
That's hard. Every respect to all you people who write fiction. I'm going to see what other questions came up from the group. I had stored them here. Somebody wanted to ask, tell me about family secrets not being open. Some of the things that happened, Isabel was able to capitalize on Simmi being in the dark about lots of things, right?
Yeah.
And her father was never upfront, even as a grown-up. It took so hard for him to come up and say this happened.
I think again, and I think family secrets and the lies you inherit and the stories you inherit and how your background influences your life. I just think it's such a rich vein to explore. I also know, and again, I'm generalizing, but one thing that certainly West Africans do is we are very proud. We have this thing about showing off and presenting a really good face to people. So we often don't let people know. We don't open up when things are going wrong. We don't tell people our problems. It's all very much, you might be suffering inside, but when you go out, you put on your best clothes, you wear your biggest smile. So I think her father had that, and Simmi definitely inherited it. Simmi was very into appearances and being seen as successful and being seen as the golden girl, and I think that she got from her father. And I wanted to show how without intending to, you sort of pick up on certain traits. And I just also find that whole stories you inherit thing a really just interesting way of working out how your parents screw you up, which they often do.
Indeed. That is very well put. Okay, and another question, I think that's the last I'll ask you actually about the book. Why did you let Isabel get away with it? That was the most frustrating part of the book for me.
A lot of people have said that, and now say, I could have got her. But I think the main reason is because it does happen. There is this group of people who are above the law. And at first, I thought it was only in Nigeria, but it isn't. We look at politics in my country, and we're in England where I live. You look at politics in America. I used to be able to know where I was based on the level of corruption. Now I can't be sure, because we have as much corruption here as we do in Nigeria. And I wanted to show that sometimes unlimited money and unlimited privilege gives you unlimited entitlement. And therefore Isabel was able to just get away with it. It also plays on the race thing, where who's going to believe Kayode? He's a black guy. Who's going to believe him? You know, who's going to say he didn't rape her? Here you are, a big, strong black man who has a relationship with her. So it played into that sort of thing. If you remember the stalker incident outside, where it's immediately assumed, black man, you must be bad. So it was a bit of that, and a bit of her using her money, but also her light-skinned privilege to be able to get away with it.
Indeed.
So a bit, it's unfortunate, but I felt it would be too tidy to have her comeuppance.
Okay, I'll forgive you for doing that.
And it's fiction.
And you mentioned colorism in our community even, and I think the racial ethnic issues, and I think that's a really important other thing. So before I let you go, tell us where people can get a copy of Wahala. In Nigeria, for example. I have a lot of viewers.
In Nigeria, it's out now in Nigeria. My publisher in Nigeria is Narrative Landscape, and the copies only arrived in Nigeria. Hang on one sec, I want to show you a picture of the cover in Nigeria. Okay. 1 second. So it has a different cover in Nigeria.
Okay.
And
I'll take a picture of it. Oh, yes, I've seen that cover. Let me take a picture.
It looks like this.
Got it. Wonderful.
So it's out now. The copies arrived really late. So I think the copies got to Nigeria 2 weeks ago. But I know it's now available in bookshops in Jos, in Abuja, in Lagos. So definitely Terra Culture in Lagos have it. It should be widely available. And if you can't get it, ping me on Twitter. I'm Nikki May on Twitter. Tell me you can't get it, and I will tell my Nigerian publishers to tell you. It also should be all over the Commonwealth. So it's in Kenya, it's in South Africa. It should be everywhere.
Okay.
Because I'm actually in Nigeria in June for a little bit of book promo.
Okay, wonderful. I made some notes of that. Listen, Miss Nikki, thank you so much for your time. I loved reading this. This was a piece of art. Well done.
Thank you so much, Uche. Yeah. Thank you for reading. Thank you for reaching out. And maybe talk again with book 2.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, if you have another book, please tweet me. Tag me somewhere. I'd love to.
And don't forget, Wahala will be on telly next year, so we can watch it then.
Wonderful, wonderful. Looking forward to it. You have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you so much again.
Thank you, Uche. Take care. Bye.
Okay, bye.